Man insults Keanu Reeves on a first-class flight. Instantly regrets it when the truth is revealed. The first-class cabin was quiet, filled with the soft hum of conversation and the occasional clinking of glasses. James Holloway, a well-known tech entrepreneur, adjusted the cuffs of his designer suit and took a sip of his champagne. He had spent years building his empire, and now luxury was simply his way of life. As he glanced around, his eyes landed on the man taking the seat beside him. James frowned slightly. The guy was dressed in a worn hoodie, plain jeans, and scuffed sneakers, completely out of place among the high-powered executives and celebrities that usually occupied first class. James smirked. Must have gotten an upgrade or used up all his miles for this ticket. A flight attendant approached, offering warm towels. James took one and wiped his hands with exaggerated care. The man next to him simply shook his head and smiled, declining the offer. James leaned back, eyeing him. Didn't expect to see someone so casual in first class, he said, his tone just short of mocking. The man turned his head slightly, raising an eyebrow. Oh, James chuckled, swirling his champagne. I just mean, most people here dress for the occasion. First class is a certain experience, you know? The man gave a small smile. I suppose so. Something about his calmness irritated James. He expected the guy to stammer, to make excuses, maybe even act embarrassed, but instead he just sat there relaxed. James decided to press further. So what do you do? The man hesitated for a moment. I work in the film industry. James smirked. Ah, let me guess. Aspiring director? Screenwriter? Maybe an editor? He laughed. This your first big flight after landing a gig? The man just smiled again, shaking his head slightly. Something like that. Before James could continue, a voice interrupted. Mr. Reeves, it's so wonderful to have you flying with us again. James's smirk disappeared instantly. The flight attendant stood beside them, her face glowing with admiration. Would you like your usual drink, sir? James's eyes widened. No way. The man, no, Keanu Reeves, nodded politely. Just water, thank you. The air seemed to thicken around James. He swallowed hard, feeling his stomach twist with embarrassment. He had spent the last few minutes treating Keanu Reeves, one of the most beloved actors on the planet, like some clueless nobody. James's mouth went dry. He scrambled for words. I didn't realize. Keanu turned to him, his expression kind but unreadable. Would it have mattered? James froze. That single question struck him harder than any insult ever could. The truth was, yes, it would have mattered. If he had known from the start that this was Keanu Reeves, he would have been respectful. He wouldn't have judged his clothes, wouldn't have assumed he didn't belong. And that realization made James feel small. The rest of the flight, James barely spoke. He sat in silence, staring at his untouched champagne, thinking about how wrong he had been. Keanu, on the other hand, continued to smile, greeting flight attendants kindly, thanking them for their service. He didn't need designer suits or flashy watches. He didn't act superior. He was just himself. And somehow, that made him more powerful than anyone James had ever met. As the plane landed, James hesitated before speaking. Mr. Reeves, I just want to say, Keanu stood, grabbing his simple backpack. It's all good, man. James watched as Keanu walked off, effortlessly blending into the crowd. No security detail, no entourage, just Keanu Reeves. And for the first time in his life, James questioned everything he thought he knew about success. James stepped off the plane, his mind still spinning from what had just happened. He had spent years believing that wealth, status, and appearances defined a person's worth. But Keanu Reeves, one of the most famous and successful people in the world, had just proven him completely wrong. As he made his way through the terminal, James pulled out his phone and instinctively opened his email. There were at least 20 unread messages, most of them business-related. Investors, board meetings, deals. Normally, he would dive in immediately, eager to stay on top of everything. But now, he stared at the screen for a moment before locking his phone and shoving it back into his pocket. For the first time in years, he didn't feel the urgency. Lost in thought, James barely noticed the elderly man struggling to carry his suitcase down the escalator. People walked past, too busy or indifferent to help. A few months ago, James would have done the same. But now, something in him hesitated. Before he could second-guess himself, he stepped forward. Here, let me get that for you. The old man looked up, surprised. Oh, thank you, son. That's very kind of you. James lifted the suitcase with ease and carried it down. As he set it beside the man, he felt something strange, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Satisfaction. Not from closing a deal, not from making money, just from helping someone. The old man smiled. Not many people stop to help these days. You've got a good heart. James almost laughed at that. A good heart? He had spent his whole life chasing power, success, wealth, things that had nothing to do with kindness. But now, after one simple interaction, he felt lighter. As the man walked away, James exhaled, realizing that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to change. He glanced around the busy airport, taking in the sight of everyday people going about their lives. None of them cared about his expensive suit, his designer watch, or the millions sitting in his bank account. And for the first time in his life, James wondered if those things had ever really mattered at all.